Good evening, and thank you for viewing. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Here.
Vice Mayor Schaefer,
Here.
Councilmember Stillman, Councilmember Watson,
Here.
Councilmember Matthews,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. If you wish to make a comment during the meeting, either at the 2 open public comment periods or for an individual agenda item, there are 3 ways to do so. If you are here in person, please line up behind the podium when the item you would like to speak on is accepting public comment. If you are logged on to Zoom, click raise your hand when it is time for public comment on the item you wish to speak. If you are on the phone, press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. When it is your turn, you will be prompted to dial *6 on your phone. For each item, we will be taking in-person public comment first and then move to the online comment. We will not be going back and forth, so if you are wanting to comment, please line up at the podium or raise your electronic hand as soon as public comment is requested for that. Next, we have Ceremonial Matters. We have a proclamation in recognition of Fire Prevention Week, which is October 9th through the 15th, 2022, and the proclamation will be read by Councilmember Matthews. Just so you know, a council member will read the proclamation. If there's an in-person recipient, they'll meet you down there to present it to you. And then if you'd like to say something, you can go to the podium and say something about it.
Okay. Proclamation in recognition of Fire Prevention Week, October 9th through 15th, 2022. Whereas home, the place people often feel safest from fire, is actually where they are the greatest risk, with 74% of all U.S. fire deaths occurring in homes. And whereas people are more likely to die in a home fire today than they were in 1980, newer homes are built with lightweight materials that burn faster than older home constructions, and many of today's products and furnishing produce toxic gases and smoke when burned, making it impossible to see and breathe within moments. These conditions create such a much shorter time frame, as little as 1 to 2 minutes, for people to escape after the smoke alarm sounds. And whereas paying attention to your surroundings, looking for available exits, and even in the event of a fire or other emergency, and taking the smoke alarm seriously if it sounds, can mean a potentially life-saving difference in a fire or other emergency. And whereas home fire escape plans should be developed by all household members and practiced twice a year to ensure that everyone knows what to do in a real fire. And whereas Arcata's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through the prevention and protection of education, and whereas 2022 Fire Prevention Week theme, Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape, promotes potentially life-saving messages that can mean the difference between life and death in a fire. Developing a home escape plan with all members of the household and practicing it regularly ensures that everyone knows what to do when the smoke alarm sounds and uses that time wisely. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby recognizes October 9th through 15th, 2022 as Fire Prevention Week throughout this community. The Council is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Arcata, and urges Arcatans to participate in the many public safety activities and efforts of the Arcata Fire District and emergency services during Fire Prevention Week 2022. October 5th, 2022. Signs Salazar, Mayor.
All the city staff and you for this and everything else we do all year long. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for what you guys do for our community. So next is a proclamation recognizing October 2022 as Community Planning Month, and this proclamation will be
recognizing October 2022 as Community Planning Month, whereas community planning is a dynamic and collaborative practice that promotes sound land use, economic prosperity, environmental stewardship, and a high quality of life, whereas community planning is the principal way that all residents are involved in choices that whereas community planning has been vital to creating resilient communities that efficiently respond to hardships such as the COVID-19 pandemic, unprecedented wildfires, whereas the full benefit of planning requires public officials and residents to understand, support, and excellence planning plan implementation. And whereas the local Redwood Coast section of the Northern California Chapter American Planning Association promotes planning at the regional level through educational programs and events. And whereas the American Planning Association and its professional institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, endorse October as National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight the contributions that sound planning and plan implementation make to the quality of our community and the environment. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month provides an opportunity to publicly recognize the participation of dedication of local, private, and public sector planners, planning commissioners, and other community planners who have contributed their time and improvement of the city of Arcata. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the City Council of Arcata, the month of October 2022 is hereby recognized as Community Planning Month in Arcata in conjunction with the celebration of National. The Council recognizes the many valuable contributions made by professional community and planners of the city of Arcata and of the County of Humboldt, sends its heartfelt thanks for continued commitment to public service by October 5th. Salazar, Mayor. Go ahead, Chris.
Hello, my name is Crystal Heaney, AICP, and I'm representing the Redwood Coast chapter of Northern California APA. And on behalf of the Northern California APA, we really want to thank you for making this proclamation for this month. Planning is something that people hardly ever think about on a regular basis, unless they're going to get a permit for their house or their business or some other issue. But it is something that is experienced every day when you're walking down sidewalks or driving on the streets or even in your own backyard. At some point somewhere there was a group of planners and officials and public input committees that were deciding how all of these things should be laid out and where different uses should go in our cities and our counties. So it's really important to have good planners in the communities. And I encourage everyone to seek out your local planner and let them know what your thoughts are. We would love to hear from you. The more public input we have, the better we can design communities for your needs. So thank you again for this proclamation.
Thank you, Crystal, and thank you all the planners here at our
And our last proclamation is recognizing October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness. And this proclamation will be
It's appropriate because yesterday the missing, murdered Indigenous peoples were, and so this all falls diagonal. Whereas October is the annual recognized as the National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the continues to be made violent prevention. And whereas domestic intimate partner violence remains a serious issue for all people, regardless of age, race, ethnicity, sex, gender, social, economic status, literacy, sexuality, ability, religion, culture, and immigration. And whereas domestic partner violence violates individual humanity with its systematic use of control, whereas children exposed to violence, long, including difficult school, substance abuse, behavioral problems, and serious health problems in adults. And whereas the Humboldt County Domestic Violence Services has been serving Humboldt County since 1977 to continuously support all those living with or escaping abuse. And whereas all survivors deserve access to cultural responsive prevention programs and services to increase their safety and self-sufficiency. The HDVS enlists a diverse array of allies, agencies, and community members in supporting survivors of domestic and intimate partner violence. Whereas only together we can change the health and safety of our community by challenging the societal norms that perpetuate violence. Now therefore it be proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata recognized the month of October 2022 to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the Council celebrates 45 years of effort to improve community safety by breaking the cycle of domestic and intimate partner violence. Signed October 5th, 2022 by Mayor Casey Atkins Salazar. Is there someone here to receive it? Well, thank you.
Josh Wolf and Sue Cashman, and I just really appreciate their commitment to the Transportation Safety Committee and all the years they've put into it. They both offer regularly well thought out, insightful perspective for the rest of the committee part of our discussion. I'd like to acknowledge our city engineer, Nathan Cattree, and assistant city engineer, David Case, for being at the meeting, keeping everything running and helping with everything that we're doing. So those guys are great. And Todd Dockweiler with the police department is there every month giving us safety reports, collision data, so we can follow trends, try to help the city react to areas. So, and one last thing is, our meetings now for a couple of years have been on Zoom. And so we've got the good and bad with Zoom. Zoom has been great. Public participation seems to be up. Very easy to take part. So that's been an excellent improvement in the meetings. It's also good for members in that I walk the table and I'm at the meeting. Very convenient. There is the weird communication with Zoom that I'd be honest with you, I really miss the in-person meetings. Can't wait till we're back to that. Not ready yet to be back there, but we're all probably tired of it to a certain degree, so it's got its good and bad. I just wanted to acknowledge that we've been doing our meetings through that mode a couple of years. Yeah, and then if you've got anything about the report that you would like to focus on, or if anybody has a question. Yes.
I wanted to ask you two things. One is, how do you feel about those e-scooters? They're called the Bird, I think.
Yeah. We've talked about them a little bit at the Station Safety Committee, that they're a reality. Again, I see that as good and bad with that. I think there's potential for those to be really good because it's an alternative to people jumping in their cars. But if it's people who are jumping on those for the very first time and they weren't previously bicyclists, or maybe they weren't even drivers, I think we're in a phase evolution where I like to see what's going to happen, because right now it appears to me that for the e-vehicles, there's all kinds of these cosmic skateboards, single-wheel scooters, bikes. Sometimes people don't know whether they're a bike or they're a car. Sometimes they're blowing stop signs. Sometimes they're in the wrong lane. Sometimes they're not going too fast in the bike, too slow in the car lane. So I think it has the potential to be a great thing, but we're in an evolution that there needs to do it.
So I know other communities in California have been dealing with that, and that you just see them, they're left on the sidewalk here or there. And I think they have to be recharged, so it has to be someone that's going to be managing them, some company or someone going and picking them up. And I had someone stop me on the street, talk to me about them and how they've impacted some of the towns and stuff. So I think it'll be something to definitely watch. So I noticed that you also had considered 17th Street and Alliance Road. I'm assuming you're talking about crossing high school.
Yeah.
And that you're looking for some kind of a lighted crossing.
Yeah, I think I probably have to defer to, we haven't gone into in-depth discussion yet. Been on our agenda for a couple of months, but we've been kind of sidetracked with other things. So I don't know if nature, he looks like he's moving in to rescue me here.
Well, I just think I see students crossing there all the time, and it's fairly active crosswalk, and that having some safety there is the same as we have a crosswalk going to the Creamery. We have one across Samoa Boulevard, and that probably wouldn't be a bad place to have another one. So thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
but
that's fine. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you're looking for the answer. Yes, 17th Street has come to our TSC in the last maybe like 12 months, a few times. Currently, we are considering putting maybe a speed feedback sign that is already in the budget. It will be on the Alliance Street just to slow the speed down and enhance the crossing. If that doesn't work, maybe we'll look into the flashing sign, but right now that's not in the design phase. Right now, just a speed feedback sign letting people know at what speed they are going on Alliance Road.
Well, thank you. Those were two things that popped out of knowing about some of those things. So thank you very much for your, and you have a very ambitious next year.
We do.
Hi, thank you so much for your service, and thank you first and foremost for the help on the Complete Streets policy. I'm super happy about that. I was wondering if the Transportation Safety Committee had anything to do with the recent pop-up with the 8th and 9th streets being one-way each, and what your views on that was.
I mean, we had one member who's on that working group, and we did talk about the 8th and 9th project at our last meeting and gave some feedback. But as for the pop-up, I'm pretty sure the city and its consultants were the ones who handled that. I wasn't there that day. I didn't get a chance to see it. I don't know if there were other TSC members that were involved. So.
Yeah, thank you. I'd look forward, you don't have to answer now, but I'd look forward to eventually hearing the results of that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an exciting project that we're going to be following and giving input on.
I know there's been my mic's really loud. A lot of conversation about the L Street couplet associated with the Gateway Area Plan. And I was just wondering if you could just kind of give us a synopsis of what those conversations have been and where the committee is on that.
Sure. So a little bit of the background. So the draft of the Gateway Plan was released in December of last year, as you guys are aware. We talked about it at our January 18th meeting, and at that time the Community Development Director, David Loya, said eventually he would like some recommendations from us, but since it was still kind of new, he said, we'll be back. So, of course, we had the 110-page draft report at that time. I believe we all, or at least I printed out the Chapter 7, that's the section on mobility, which is most relevant to the Transportation Safety Committee. So then, and I think we've had, committee members have had opportunities to go on walking tours. I've done one or two of them myself. I think the first one was maybe a year ago. I was thinking it was October, predated the release of the draft. So I've done a few of the walking tours. We've had, again, that draft plan in our possession. And so Community Development came back at July 19th, and we talked about they wanted to get our recommendations on all of the different mobility elements. So we went through everything we could. I think that meeting went 3 hours. We didn't finish. So we had a special meeting 2 weeks later. That one went another couple hours plus. And that was the meeting that we finally got to the L Street couplet and made a recommendation to the City Council to leave that as a trail corridor or a linear park. And so at that point, you know, we have 7 members. Maybe one of the members is fairly new. So not all of the members have been at all of the meetings. Not everybody's hearing all of the same things. We're not consistently the same 7 people discussing the issue. One of our members is an engineer with GHD and had to recuse. So at the August 2nd meeting, when we finally got around to that discussion and made our recommendation, 2 members didn't show up. There were only 4 of us there, so we had a vote of 3-1. The dissenting member had initially in January been kind of favorable toward the view of the other 3, but he heard some things that evening that made him change his mind. So I'm giving you this background because this issue has been different for our committee to handle than just about any other issue we've taken on. We take a vote or give a recommendation on a speed hump or a stop sign or something like that. You know, we go through it. It's usually fairly black and white. There may be some nuance. We gain consensus. We give a recommendation to the city, and then the staff runs with it. This one has been a little bit different. So, having said that, and then also I paid attention to your study session that I believe was September 22nd that you had with the Planning Commission. I don't remember if I followed that live or if I dialed it up the following evening or something, but it's great to be able to pull these things up now on the internet and go back. So I paid attention to that. And let's see what else I've got here. So with that, we probably put 6 hours plus into the Gateway Plan. We probably talked about the L Street couplet 2 or 3 times and have put considerable time in discussion. So having 4 members voted on it and 1 dissenting, I'm hesitant to go into detail on what the committee's position was. I'm not sure that if I were to stand here and give what I feel the pros and cons are of it, you'd be getting my agenda. And I'm not sure that if somebody else was standing up here from the committee tonight, speaking on behalf of the committee, and they tried to convey what we talked about and what our discussions were, because they were kind of complex, they were nuanced. I'm not comfortable with that. So what I would encourage you to do, probably 10 minutes from 2 different meetings will give you the gist of the majority of that. It was the August 2nd meeting that we took the vote. There's probably a 15-minute segment from that meeting that I think somebody, I don't know if it was a member of the public or somebody else, identified. Here's where it starts. Pay attention in the next 15 minutes. You'll get the gist of what we talked about, how we came to the conclusion that we did, maybe some of the questions we asked, how people came to their positions. So, although I understand the desire to know, hey, what went on in their heads that night? What went down? You know, what was their thinking? I would love for you to hear what the committee members, what that discussion was about. And I think you're going to get the best sense of what happened. I would love to come back sometime as a private citizen and give you my opinions and my, my take on it, and I may well do that. But I represent the Transportation Safety Committee tonight, and out of respect to the other members, I would just kind of encourage you to maybe look at what we talked about at that meeting. Oh, and by the way, it's still on our agenda for next month because it was sent back to us to determine whether we would reconsider. There didn't seem to be any inclination to reconsider by anybody. Some members didn't bring up much about it at all. People seem to be ready to move on and say, we gave our recommendation, now it's in your hands, maybe we'll see it again. We talked about ideas that we could do to get what we discussed those evenings back to you, whether we come up with some synopsis. We didn't really come up with anything. It's on our agenda for next month. I think it's probably, there's a few committee members that think we've done our part, and it's time to move on, and now it's in your hands to be blunt about it. But so anyways, with that, I just would ask that maybe you could look into a couple of those YouTubes.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your service.
Sure.
No questions, but thank you, Dave, so much for a comprehensive report and just all of your input and service to the committee. And also just, I like a nice bulleted report like this, and it's helpful to me too, just to, you know, see all of the, streets laid out and think about how I drive and walk and bike around Arcata. So just thank you so much for a nice, clean, excellent report.
Great. I'll pass those thanks on to David Case. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this? If so, we'll do in person first.
Good evening, Gregory Judd. I would like to mention H and G Street added as far as unsafe streets. I don't think those were added. I live on H Street, and there's a lot of speeders, there's drag racers, there's people that flip their cars upside down on H and 16th. You talked about scooters. H Street sometimes is used to get over to Sunset in the opposite direction with skateboarders, scooters, bicyclists. They seem to not use G Street to get over there, so it's very popular to go on the wrong direction on the bike lane and go against traffic, which at some point someone's going to go head on with vehicles going down the street there, unfortunately. So that needs to be addressed. I would also like to say that as a bicyclist, you know, it's not a very safe city. I mean, I've lived in a lot of cities and I've bicycled, and like I said, I think 2 sessions before, I've never seen anybody pulled over for bad behavior in the town. I'm not saying that everybody's driving in a reckless fashion, but there's a significant number that are doing so. There's an issue there, and I don't see anybody saying that I'm wrong with that assessment too, which is it's kind of a scary thing. But there are problems out there, and they're not being addressed, and I don't really know why. Well, I think I have a little bit of an idea. I've talked a year ago with the police, basically with a lot of general problems, but it was sort of like, it was a very unusual comment, pray and go to the city council. So I've done both those things, and I don't see a lot of improvement happening there. So maybe somebody can address, you know, sort of what's behind that. Is there been a drastic reduction in the number of police that are in the city? Or, I mean, what's going on there as far as our ratio of police to the population? Because, you know, I read a lot in the New York Times. They have a section on California, and a lot of these problems are kind of listed up there, and they're sort of basic like responses. So if it's a lot of speeders and you don't have the resources, you have to have cameras at certain intersections, and they get a ticket in the mail, and it's more income for the city. Unfortunately, even with that approach, they're set probably, if it's 25 miles an hour, they're set at 36, so people learn they can get away at 35 miles an hour. So there's always limitations. So, but we need to have like a serious conversation, and maybe the police chief could address this, of exactly what's the state of the city, because I see the problems and I don't see the solutions.
Thank you, Gregory.
Hi, my name is Joanne McGarry, and one of the things I wanted to mention about some of the committees that are still on Zoom, I agree with Dave that I guess there's some benefits that some people like to just sit in the comfort of their own home and Zoom in on the meetings. There was one time when I was not able to access the meeting, and as you well know, I like to be there in person to the meetings because I think there's just so much more seen and felt and heard when you're in person. And I wasn't also aware if those meetings, those committee meetings for the transportation safety, were videotaped to follow up and listen to them afterwards. So that was one of my questions. But I do want to share with you that last week, I guess it was, I went to Eureka City Council because they were discussing a couplet issue around the zoo area and the school, the elementary school, a block away, Dolbeer and W Street, and making those one way. And it was a very interesting setup that they had. They had the Transportation Safety Committee sitting up there with the city council members, and the mayor monitoring the discussion. And it was interesting to see how that process worked and the input that people were able to give on that thing. So I sometimes seeing how other people do it is sort of interesting. And they really do have a great opportunity in that City Hall chambers to get a lot of people involved. And, it's different, but similar things are being discussed. So I just wanted to bring up those issues of concern about public participation in those committee meetings that are still on Zoom, and maybe we can make them hybrid real soon. And also, couplets, we're not alone on concern. Oh, I guess what I really wanted to bring up, because I get distracted and wander down a weird path, sometimes a winding road, but school drop-offs was a big topic at that particular discussion in Eureka. And school drop-offs are a really huge topic to me in terms of safety and climate change. And the reality of our future in a climate action plan world where transportation and fossil fuel emissions are a huge component of what we need to reduce, school drop-offs are a big concern. So the high school on 16th Street is a parking lot for blocks, and I think the school district needs to be included in a discussion of how we can improve safety, especially on pickups and drop-offs in front of schools, even the high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Hello, council members. Glenn Caldwell, Western Avenue, Arcata. I'm here to talk about safety, increased crime in our neighborhood, and the condition of the city-owned footpath that connects Alliance to Western Avenue. Top of the footpath is directly opposite my property on Western, which we've owned since 1985. Alliance Road footpath is a liability to the city and our neighborhood. There is no clear line of sight for law enforcement because of its design and deteriorating condition. It's a potential lawsuit waiting to happen. I'm here to advocate that the city either, number one, install a no-climb fence at the top and bottom of the path with gates that are open and closed on the same schedule as the nearby Arcata skate park, or two, abandon the footpath and completely fence off the trail and secure no-climb fencing. The safe routes to school improvements that were installed on North Street in 2018 lead directly to this footpath, which is 100% non-compliant with the design criteria of those improvements. Property crime is increasing in the Western Avenue Sunset area, as can be verified by the city's RIMS database maintained by APD. On 921, our locked truck was stolen at 2 a.m. while parked in front of our home, 10 feet from where we were sleeping. This is the second car theft within 200 feet of our home in the last 2 years. The same night our truck was stolen a few blocks away, neighbor's truck had its windows smashed in a theft attempt while parked on Lincoln. A few weeks prior, another neighbor had their truck tires slashed while parked on Grant. Another neighbor on Grant had their baby carrier stolen during the night from their car. Last year, our neighbor across the street had her car windows smashed overnight while parked next to our home. Unfortunately, it seems the footpath, by providing a known hidden dark space at night, is playing a role in property crimes in our area. I've spoken with Police Chief Ahern about the footpath. He's acknowledged it's problematic, sometimes used by criminals to sort stolen goods, purses, and backpacks taken by thieves on foot. We have taken to placing signs like this inside of our cars to no avail. We are finding used syringes on the footpath. My neighbor's 12-year-old son uses the path to walk to school. My neighbor, his father, has witnessed an intravenous drug user injecting himself or reclining on the footpath during the day. We are all on edge. Every bump of the night causes us to get out of bed and check to see if our property or our cars are being vandalized. Recent discussions with the city have focused on the low 38% homeownership rate in the city. With trends we are experiencing, Arcata will lose more families like ours and our neighbors. The current condition of the footpath is a problem. Improvements to the path made by the city a decade ago are now failing. The safety railings have become loose and rickety. Soil slumping and erosion are occurring, and there are slippery mud areas during the wet season. With the potential of addition of 102 housing units at the Westwood Garden Apartments, there will be an increase in foot traffic as well as additional liability for the city. It truly saddens me to think about locking down our neighborhood like this, but things are getting worse there. While many cities, including Arcata, are working to add safe pedestrian infrastructure and footpaths, without clear policy addressing criminal use and law enforcement on footpaths, we are in danger of creating additional problems while attempting to solve others. Lastly, I want to sincerely thank Environmental Services Director Emily Sinkhorn for offering to meet with our neighborhood group on October 12th, and to thank Meredith Matthews for meeting with us on the trail last Sunday morning. I'm happy to meet with any of you at any time to look for solutions to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm also here to talk about this Alliance Road footpath. What we have tried to tolerate as homeowners in the immediate neighborhood on Western Avenue and the Sunset has become unlivable. Folks, you need to wake up. The Alliance Trail is now signed, very definitely city sign. There's a bright LED streetlight right at the top on Western Avenue. So this becomes a criminal highway. And don't doubt, if you look at any survey of recent crime in the last 6 months in our neighborhood, it's we can't tolerate it. 2 times in the past 4 months, used hypodermic needles. This is right on the trail, right by the rocks, where moms and dads come with their strollers, where people walk their dogs. We can't tolerate this. And this is a treacherous footpath for our children to get to the elementary school now, with the safe sidewalk that goes all along in Sunset to the elementary. I'm not exaggerating saying that it's a treacherous trail. Only very able-bodied people can do this. And it becomes even worse in the winter. Steep, eroding, uneven stairs, they aren't to regulation. Leaning handrail, rotten, falling off. This is your property, city, and the liability is just waiting to jump. I don't want to see that. I want to know that my neighbors are safe, that we're safe at night. And on average, about every 2 weeks, any hour of the night, arguments, fights, loud music happens. And we have to holler at the people, go away, we'll call the police. They wake us up. They're making our student, the Cal Poly student tenants that live in the neighborhood also feeling very unsafe, and unsafe we are. We're asking for secure fencing top and bottom and all of this trail removed. Maybe 20 years ago, somebody thought it was a good idea, but somebody is going to get a concussion or worse. Meredith was very pleasant to meet us on Sunday morning. 7 of our immediate neighbors met with her over a half hour, walking the trail, discussing it. In the course of that, there are 2 maybe 10-year-old boys on skateboards, taking them down the trail, trying to ride the rails. That could have been a concussion. That could have wiped out thousands and thousands of dollars of our taxpayer dollars that go into the city coffers. So you guys need to wake up. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be rectified immediately. We cannot tolerate this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Do we have anyone online?
We have 2 online. Our first online is James. Go ahead, James.
Hi, this is Jim Becker speaking, and I just wish to follow up a little bit about the, sorry, I got another thing going here, 1 second, I apologize. So I did want to speak to Arcata Linear Park and just revisit it. There is presently a website that I put out where we are running a online petition. It is actually garnering people from the area and also from around the state, which I think is helpful too, because the Great Redwood Trail will definitely be welcoming people throughout the state. We also have a paper petition going too, and we hope at some point to present something to you just to demonstrate the interest that people would like to see the park. Once again, the couplet would employ rail banking for road expansion, and it's really not in the spirit of rails to trails. Rails to trails should be about a corridor enhancement, not a situation where the corridor is degraded, which will happen there in addition to paving over open spaces. Give me one moment. And, in addition to that, though, as far as the page goes, there's some great links on there. I encourage you to check out the link to the Great Redwood Trail from Ukiah. There's really good language in there as far as the city, came behind what was a strong community interest in having a linear park. And they've made something really great down there. There are some links on there to the Arcata Linear Park Facebook page and also to the Arcata Linear Park Instagram page. There is links in there to decision makers, you there, the Planning Commission, Mike McGuire, to Steve Madrone on the committee. He's, I think, the vice chair for the committee of the Great Redwood Trail. And just to keep in mind that open spaces to the north and south will be paved over. This is kind of an irreversible situation for the road. I think there are alternatives out there that we should consider. And just consider what this can represent as far as Arcata goes with the Great Redwood Trail coming through. And I hope you get a chance to look at the page. And like I said, we hope to present something to you at some point with the petition. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, James.
Our next speaker is Anthony. Go ahead, Anthony.
Hello, thank you. My name is Anthony DeLuca, and I appreciate that you guys were mentioning community planners for the month of October and supporting that, because I know some of my comments have been pretty critical, and I'd like to introduce myself as a community planner just so that you can see a little more where I'm coming from. I learned a long time ago that writing and music were important to me, and finding what I love helped me in my life so much that I learned to encourage other people to do that, which eventually led to supporting and promoting people's businesses with flyers and web design and things like that. And I've been really inspired by the spirit of Humboldt County and Arcata and the local business culture. I feel like supporting our local economy by making sure that the money is circulating and creating a commonwealth is really important.
Anthony, I'm just going to stop you for 1 second. Right now, the public comment is on the Transportation Safety Committee report. I'm thinking maybe you've got more of a general comment.
It was in regards to acknowledging community planners for the month of October that was mentioned.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that was a few items ago, so we've actually moved on from that one.
I didn't catch public comment for that. Well, anyway, I support the linear park.
Okay, well, that fits in. Thank you.
No more online comment on Transportation Safety Committee.
So before we go to further council comments, what I did have one earlier when Mr. Ryan was here presenting, but we kind of gave him a lot to think about. So I'll bring it up now, though, because it will kind of answer some of the, not the trail questions that have been brought up, but the traffic-related questions. So that pedestrian bicycle safety has been a topic that keeps coming up regarding different streets, different intersections, and being brought to us, in various forms, email, at meetings, personal conversations. And I know, like, I personally have an intersection that I think is unsafe. So rather than kind of knowing that accident happened, typically, you have a fender bender, you work it out with the other driver, your insurance, and you go from there. And so it was number 7 in the TSC report is talking about one of their goals is to promote the Street Story, which is an app or a web-based tool that citizens can use to report unsafe things. And I think that is a really important, I'm glad that I saw that on there, because that's one way to help get those statistics for your area. Is we all just need to take responsibility. I just assumed as I was witnessing accidents or unsafe behaviors that was all making it to the police department, but it doesn't. So this is another way of collecting that data, which is really important for our community. And I'll pause there, and maybe other council members have thoughts or maybe comments on the trails that you guys are talking about.
You mean the one that was presented to us today? are you talking about? You don't mean that, because we can't really talk about anything that's presented on.
No, we're just still talking about the Traffic Safety
Okay.
Committee, yeah, report.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it sounds like, you know, this Alliance neighborhood needs urgent help. It seems, you know, definitely pretty problematic. Too many times, you know, I've seen us as a council, we will, you know, we do really care, so we will meet with these community members, we'll listen to their problems, we'll sit up here and nod our heads during public comment, and then time happens, it kind of gets forgotten about, and, you know, nothing gets done about it. So, you know, I think this is a good challenge for us to kind of break that pattern. You know, I really think it's appropriate for us to agree to take urgent action on this problem. You know, agendize it for our next council meeting and start talking about solutions. I think 2 weeks, you know, is a lot of time for, you know, the council members that met with those community members to have that conversation with the city manager and bring those concerns forward, and for us to have that conversation about solutions and how we can help these people as soon as possible, instead of, you know, I mean, yeah, I just hate it when problems like this happen and they just kind of get forgotten about. And then a couple years later, you know, it just kind of rinses and repeats itself. So, yeah, let's put in the work and help.
Are there any other comments from council members on this? All right.
No support for putting this on the next agenda? I just want to put that on the record.
You're talking about the item that came before us about the trail system.
Yeah, the Alliance people
Okay.
had commented about
Well,
that.
I think
was
that
the
would
next
probably have to, the mayor would have to talk to staff about it and see what they could, and Meredith, you can, the two of you could, I don't think we can do it tonight.
Yeah, 3 council members can agree to putting something on an agenda that's established. So I think if we're serious about it, we should do it.
I know that for my part, I've already talked to the city manager about it, so I feel comfortable with how we're moving forward. Thank you.
So how are we moving forward? Can we explain that to them?
Hey, I don't want to do this right now on the dais. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we don't want to help them in a public meeting with our problem. Just want to clarify.
Case of helping them or not helping them, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, and how we handle it is what we have to do to go through the process.
So I just want to clarify for them, what is the process? I feel like that's a pretty fair question. Can we explain to them what the process is, how we're going to help them with their problems?
Well, from my perspective, I know that Councilmember Matthews met with them. She's talking to staff. I did email with some of the folks, and, you know.
I'm following up. I'm
Yep,
meeting with
and
them and
so-
Emily on October 12th, and we'll go from there. It's not going to be forgotten, but I don't appreciate you calling me out like this publicly.
Yeah, I'm not calling you out. I'm just, you know, citing my past
You are.
experience. No, if you think so. If you feel that way, I'm sorry. But I'm just citing, you know, my past experience with this. And it's just really concerning to me. You know, I really want to make sure these people get help as soon as possible, and it's not just rhetoric up here. So,
Well,
I have faith in you all, and I will follow, you know, what you guys want to do.
Well, I was planning on walking it myself, and I will do that this week or next week. And then I wanted to go look at another area that goes up to the school, Sunset School. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would love to also just add, because I saw you put your name and address, but I don't want to come knocking on your door. If we could get an email or a phone number for you as well, Glenn, just because I'm very familiar with that path as well. I used to live on Stewart Court, so I'd walk a little loop up the really nice paved path and beautiful bridge up into Sunset, and then down the rather cuddy little path back to Alliance. So I'm familiar with it, and thank you for bringing this to us, and I appreciate it.
Okay, so next we have early oral communications, and the city council values your comments. This 15-minute time period allows people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. Please know that pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on items that are not listed on the posted agenda. At the end of all oral communications, the council may respond to statements. Supported requests that require council actions will be set for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. There will also be time for the public to comment specifically on each agenda item, and again at the end of the meeting under item 12. If you are here in person and you have one of the cards, please make your way to the podium. If you are on Zoom, please raise your hand by pressing *9. Star 9 is if you're calling in on the phone. Sorry. If you're on Zoom, raise your hand. On the phone, press star 9. All right, thank you.
The city council is to swear allegiance to the laws of the state of California. And August 23rd, when you had a joint session between the planning commission and the council, I objected to the fact that you were, having a straw vote from the standpoint of the Gateway project. And part of my objection to it is that it's not even your role to make that decision. It's a coastal commission. Coastal commission is properties from 8th Street down to Samoa Boulevard, and this falls under their jurisdiction. So I'm just really confused how long this has been going on and why the staff hasn't advised you on that. And I'd also like to bring up the point that Coastal Commission has also made a ruling in the last meeting, and basically that was part of your phase 1 wastewater treatment plant that you're bringing up tonight as far as the cost of it. And part of that is that your $100,000 grant that you're spending for, part of it is sea level rise and part of it is improvements to the plant. You have, I think, 18 months as part of your grant to come back, and a part of that is identifying sea level rise. Where are you going to move that plant? And I've been told by a number of sources that the Gateway project was the area with the Barrel District where that was supposed to go. So my question is to you is, how can you make that decision of going ahead without that report the Coastal Commission is demanding from you, and also from the standpoint that you have no jurisdictions to make the decision on the height of those buildings? You really need to learn the law or go to staff and get advice, because the Coastal Commission is only down the street. So why don't you ask them what their advice is?
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry, and I sometimes like to bring some visuals. So we've got a polar bear, and the sea level is rising, and it's a little bit longer to last than my talking here. But again, I want to remind the City of Arcata, the City Council, the staff, that we really are in a climate emergency, and we need to start acting as if we are in an emergency. And I really am concerned, well, first of all, that we have these ceremonial matters and it takes up a lot of council time. So if that's going to continue, I would really like, in the beginning of each meeting, a climate action report about what the city is doing actively to thwart the climate reality and to lower our greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, a specific report of what we are actually doing on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and make that a standard part of our city council meetings. I also appreciate the acknowledgement that is read at the beginning of the meeting, and I would like to ask if a written form of that could be placed in the lobby so that people can see what we are dedicated to and acknowledging in our space here and our community about the ancestral lands of the Waive people. So if we could have something written, I would really appreciate that. But as you know from the San Francisco Chronicle cover story, we are ground zero for a lot of things, and we can be in the vanguard of showing people how we adapt and mitigate all those things. So we are in an emergency. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't need a vote. So let us act like we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
All right, our first online early oral communication is Anthony. Go ahead, Anthony.
Hi, thank you. I will just go ahead and pick up where I left off a moment ago. What I was getting at is growing up in Humboldt County.
Can't really hear you, Anthony. Maybe you can speak more into the microphone.
Thank you. Growing up in Humboldt County and the small business environment, thinking locally, having a respect for nature around us and the natural amenities that we all have, and also having family all around the country and going a few places myself, we have something really precious here. And there's not a lot of places and people who get to experience the amount of things made locally that we have. The quality, the freshness, the food is more nutritious because it's grown here. And I really think that with all the plans and things you guys are doing, I respect all the work that you're doing, but I think it's really should be a priority to support the community. And then I guess that's where I come back as a community planner and saying, in the spirit of Humboldt County, I've created a website for any of us to donate content about our businesses and our arts and our crafts, our entrepreneurship, just to encourage one another and to see each other's stories so that we could work together. And that website is called rhapsodicglobal.org. And if you want to learn more about me, my website is anthonyjosephdeluca.com. I love Humboldt County, I love Arcata, and even if I'm critical, I want you to know that I have love for all of you because we're all here together. And I just want what's best for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
All right, our next speaker is a phone-in speaker with the last four digits 5854. Go ahead, call-in speaker. Can you unmute, call-in speaker? Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Hi. Let's see, I just wanted to just make a statement. I just want to say that I think Brett is a really good person. I've actually known him several years now, and he's always been really dedicated to Arcata. He volunteers in the community, and he's always been trying to make the city a better place. And I do know that he's made some mistakes, but I do believe he's a better person now from those experiences. And I would describe Brett as pretty much the most stable person that I know. And he's really has a deep understanding of mental health issues and always trying to help everyone around him with their mental health. And honestly, I feel that people should stop trusting what the newspaper's saying, and as far as the negative, and just come to the meetings and hear Brett talk. It's weird that some people are trying to attack his mental health because, like I said, he's one of the most stable people I know. But yeah, I just wanted to make that statement, and I do appreciate your time today, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, caller.
Right, and our last online early oral communication is James. Go ahead, James.
Hi, I probably could have taken care of this during the last time I was speaking, but I failed to mention during the time when Dave Ryan was speaking, his volume dropped off to almost zero at one point when he was trying to describe some of the situations that went on with his meetings. And I'm hoping that's something that's just online and can be recovered at the audio end, so I feel, and that's the main thing. So if somebody can look into that by the end of the meeting, it would be great just to see if those sound levels can come back up. Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Jim. Just so everyone knows, we are working on some audio issues with Access Humboldt right now, and so hopefully they will be resolved, and yes, hopefully we'll be able to restore all of that.
But all day today, we've had problems with the internet. So I don't know if anyone in the audience has, but it's been difficult today with internet.
Was James the last public comment?
We have had one more raise their hand. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, hello guys. I'd like to go back to the unsafe road subject. Recently we met with the city manager after 5 years of lack of response to our concerns of safer routes to school for our Arcata High School families. So we met, down on M Street. And what she said was that we have to wait for it to be developed to make any progress on the road. And then I pointed to many newly improved roads that didn't have like a connection to development. In fact, we were just standing at the corner and you could look all the way up 12th Street, all the way up to Wildberries, and it was repaved and restriped and everything. So then after that, then the subject changes. Well, then if we pave it, she said, then if we pave it, people will only drive faster. And so we get stuck in these conundrums where I don't understand how we move forward. And I know Brett Watson was just trying to move forward on something, and maybe it was not procedurally right, but I'd like to see more concern on behalf of the city council, directing city staff to start making some progress on these concerns of the residents of Arcata. So thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, no more online communications.
I just want to quickly say, I mean, I'd really like to see the staff and the council get training on working with people with mental health issues and disabilities. I feel like that's something that's really missing from the trainings we receive. And, it's just really unfortunate when, people are dealing with depression and anxiety and serious issues in their life, and, they get these labels as, being unstable. It feels discriminatory, and it feels inappropriate, and
$5,000. Authorize the city engineer to increase the contract amount by up to $25,518.75, which is 15%, for a total of $195,643.75, to allow for any unforeseen contingencies and additional work as necessary, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. Would any council member like to remove an item from the consent calendar?
Hearing nothing, and then I would like to move for approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, so before we go to that vote, is there anyone from staff or the public that would like to have an item removed? Nope. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, public comment.
Aye.
Oh, was there a public?
No, yeah, they pull it.
Okay. All right, sounds like that's unanimous. Motion passes. Okay, so next we have new business, and this is to conduct a public hearing to receive input regarding unmet transit needs and to direct staff to forward all comments to the Humboldt County Association of Governments. So can we have a staff report from City Engineer Kotry, please?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and the member of public here. This is our annual public hearing for the unmet transit needs. HCOG administers our TDA fund for all transit agencies. This public hearing is one of the requirements to use the transit funds. Goal here is to just get the input, and once we receive the input, we will be forwarding that to HCOG, and they will be finalizing the unmet transit needs for the whole region by early next year. So the way we are doing is, one of the public hearing is here, then also people can provide input at different meetings where other cities are also holding, HCOG is holding. And the final date for providing the public comment is December 31st, 2022, and that's it from our side. And people can provide comments directly to our transit manager, Leanne, and also at HCOG to Beth Burks.
I have an unmet transit need. I've heard a couple different people that I've talked to and been in communication with about improved bus routes to Bayside and having bus service. And I know I've talked a little bit about this with the city manager as well. But just, whether that be city bus going out or also a continuation of HDA county bus, on that whole route out through Old Arcata and everything through there. So Bayside needs buses.
So today at HTA, we had no comments come in from anybody, but I understand that HCOG has gotten a couple of emails from that. And Eureka also had their council meeting last night, and there were some items were brought up as far as bus system in Eureka.
Well, I have an unmet transit need too, since we're part of this. I was helping a young person look for employment that was located in Valley West, and he lives more in town in Arcata, and it's limited because of the availability of buses in the later evenings, and so I would just like to make a request for that. And also just to clarify in the process, of course, we all get to make our requests and they get evaluated, but it also has to meet a threshold of 10% ridership at the bus stop. And it's just, you know, I just don't want people to think because we're making our requests, they're all, you know, gonna get answered. I wish they were.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. If you want to start a new route, we want to make sure our fare box ratio is minimum 10%. We have to meet that if you add a new route. In the past, HTA has tried some new routes, but they had to cancel that because they were not able to meet that minimum 10% fare box ratio. And if you have a question on fare box ratio, I can explain that too.
And like following up on that today, there's HTA is starting a pilot program, which is what, if you extended something, would be a pilot program, and that's between Orleans and Willow Creek.
As someone that used to live in Orleans, that's remarkable, so.
I think the key is when, you know, hopefully getting the word out when those new routes get trialed so people are willing to try them out and get the ridership going. That's really the important piece so that we can keep them. Do we have any members of the public in person that have any unmet transit needs that they would like to bring forth? Okay, how about online?
No online comments for this item.
Well then, according to our recommendation, those items that were brought up tonight by council members should be forwarded on to HCOG.
Do we have a second on that motion? It's okay, she put it out there.
Yeah. I second it.
Well, you made it, so I thought we'll just.
No, I'm just mentioning that that's
okay,
where
well, I
it
think we're all in
happened.
agreement. Yep, that's the process, so.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. Okay, moving on to our, do you have a comment?
I was just gonna say, I feel like this next item might take a while. If I could please request a bathroom break. Thank you.
I know you've all been waiting really patiently. We're just gonna take a 5-minute break real quick, and then we'll be back, and you guys are next. Okay, we have item B for new business, which is to waive immaterial and minor bid discrepancies and award a construction contract for Phase 1 of the Arcata Wastewater Treatment Facilities Improvement Project to Wallen Construction Incorporated in the amount of $51,495,000.57. Authorize the city engineer to increase the contract amount by up to $3,089,007.
We bid the project. The project was out for bid for at least 60 days, or actually it was more than that because we had to issue an addendum. We received 2 bids for the project. One was from Wallen Construction and other was from North Coast Constructors. A bid summary for the project is attached with your staff report. Both the bids were reviewed and evaluated for completeness, consistency to ensure both the bid met the project contract requirements. After the bid opening, City received a bid protest document from North Coast Constructors challenging the responsiveness of Wallen Construction's bid, followed by a response to the bid protest from the Wallen Construction. City project team and consultants reviewed the protest documents and believe Wallen Construction's bid is responsive and responsible. There are few minor discrepancies in the Wallen's bid, but on further review, they were declared immaterial. North Coast Constructors raised 3 questions on their bid protest related to Wallen's responsiveness, and I'll just go through those 3 elements. Number 1 was Wallen Construction did not meet the project requirement to list a completed project that was at least 80% of the value of this project. The intent behind the qualification section of the bid to determine that the contractor has sufficient experience performing work on projects at and related to wastewater treatment plants. The project history provided by the Wallen demonstrate that they have experience to do the work. Of the projects listed within the last 5 years, College of the Redwoods project cost was listed as approximately $30 million. This is approximately 77.5% of the engineer's estimate for the project. This is just 2.5% shy of the project requirement, hence it's immaterial. In addition to that, they have listed other small projects related to water and wastewater that shows they are qualified to perform the work. The number 2 concern that was raised by North Coast Constructor was Wallen Construction did not meet the project requirement to list projects showing proper qualification for the electrical work on the project. This section of the bid document is intended to review qualifications for an electrical subcontractor business. Wallen Construction is self-performing electrical work under their own C10 license. Therefore, the section then refers to their overall qualifications, so hence they meet the requirement for that as well. Number 3 is Wallen Construction did not meet the project requirement as it lists a demobilization amount that is less than permitted by the bid documents. The intent of this requirement is to prevent front-loading of the contract and can be corrected during the contract execution via different means, so that this discrepancy is deemed minor as well. For the project, we have already completed environmental review for state and federal requirement. Last month we received coastal development permit for the project because of one more milestone for the project, and they have given some conditions on the project which we believe as staff and the contractors can meet those conditions. Funding for this project is mainly from a grant through state revolving fund, and there are some portion will be funded by city sewer fund. While speaking with our partners at the State Water Board, they reviewed the bids, and one of the item was tidal and earthquake insurance, and they have said that they will be not paying for that item. So hence, city has to cover that item, and that item cost is approximately $500,000. The remainder would be covered by the state revolving fund. If the contract is awarded today, contractor could start the work as early as late October, and construction would be completed in 36 months after the start of the construction. I just want to maybe give big kudos to the city team and the partners who work on the project. As I said, this is one of the largest projects in the city, and this is the best example of teamwork working together in the city from the city manager's department to finance department, from community development department to environmental services and engineering, all working together. I believe there were at least 1 or 2 staff from each department who contributed towards this work. So this is great that we are at this level and we are able to award the project and it's fully funded and we can start the construction and we can meet the compliance and fix our aging infrastructure. So with that, I will conclude my staff report. If you have any questions, with me also, if you have any further questions, we have Emily Sinkhorn, our Environmental Services Director, Adobe, who's a project engineer, and Nancy Diamond if you have any other questions. And also I believe we have somebody on the Zoom from Corollo, who's our design engineer. Sam Hawkins. Thank you.
Thank you for the staff report. Could you please, whichever person is appropriate, discuss the letter that we all got just prior to this meeting with late coming protest and advise us on if that should affect our decision making this evening?
I can briefly speak on that, and I'll also maybe let Nancy speak. We received the letter late, and since they did not put the bid for the project, so they did not qualify for the bid protest. But I will let maybe more legal language from our city attorney.
Good evening. The city engineer is absolutely correct. The bid specification specifically identifies that only, and I'm quoting, only a bidder who has actually submitted a proposal is eligible to submit a bid protest against another bidder. So the protest that was received late this afternoon by Mercer Fraser isn't eligible for being considered. The other, let's see, is that here too? The other issue is that it came in late. The bid specifications, thank you, right there in front of me. The bid specifications also have a bid protest deadline, and that was August 26th, I believe, or 23rd, the date that the bid from NCC came in. They did come in within the bid deadline. So for those two reasons, the Mercer Fraser bid is just not something the City Council needs to consider.
Thank you, but I do think one of the things that was brought up is the electrical subcontractor, and that is in this also. There's a lot of concerns about that. So that's what I feel like Mercer Fraser was addressing, and they felt like if they had realized, they would have kept their bid in or whatever they would have done. But reading all this, we have issues with this electrical contractor.
Sorry, I didn't follow you. Is that a question? Sorry, I'm not following your question.
Well, what they brought up, Mercer Fraser, I know we can't even talk
okay.
about them, but it's the electrical contractor, and that is an issue within the documents we received.
Okay, yes, definitely. Sorry, my apologies. So I can speak to that. I did talk with Mark Benzinger. I think they have mentioned my name on the letter. So I did speak with Mark Benzinger because when the bidding was happening, we were under the impression that Mercer Fraser will also be submitting the bid. But after looking at the bid opening date, we did not see their bid. So I asked him, what was the reason you did not submit the bid? And his reasoning was he was almost ready, but he was not able to get an electrical contractor, which was one of the project requirement, to bid the project. And hence they were not able to bid the project.
They talk about the electrical contractor in here, the issues, I mean, between the two. Maybe I misread it.
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're saying, Alex. Just about, because it talks about like the strict qualifications for that electrical contractor and not being able to meet those. So could you just maybe clarify a little bit more, like what those qualifications would be and why somebody would think that they would not meet them, and now we're seeing that, okay, yeah, this seems okay, you are going to meet that, and so the kind of confusion there, if you have insight on that.
I will definitely expand on that. As we know, this is one of the largest projects we're doing in the city. We wanted to make sure the contractor we get, they have good qualified subcontractors, or they can self-perform the electrical work. So hence there was a requirement to have a certain amount of work to be done and a certain bid amount of work to be done by an electrical contractor who is qualified to do the work. In this case, our low bidder here at Walland, they don't have a subcontractor who's an electrical license, but however, they will be self-performing the electrical work, and they have a multiple experience on electrical and wastewater work and electrical work related to wastewater and water projects.
I guess my question is for City Attorney Diamond. Just having read the letter and your understanding of the project, should this give us any pause in our decision making this evening, or are you comfortable going forward with us voting on it this evening?
Well, as an attorney, I am well aware that people will sue regardless of the legal merit, and so they may very well sue. I don't believe they have legal merit, and I will also let the council know that Wall and Construction, if awarded the bid, will actually pick up defense for the city for any protest that is litigated.
So they'll cover the liability?
They will cover all the city's costs. They'll indemnify.
Is there a precedence for what you're talking about of being like so close to the threshold but not quite meeting it? Has that been something that's happened in the past with bids that we've accepted?
Well, no, this is one of the largest projects we have done. In the past, I believe, I don't quote me on that, maybe have to see some of the project documents. There were some projects that we have done where there were minor irregularities and we have awarded the contract. But at that time, the value was in the range of $3 to $5 million, the total cost of the project. And this is $50 million project, so definitely it's a larger project.
I always like to ask the hypothetical, and this is kind of a new process to me since I've been on the council, but I mean, so in the situation, if we reject, the bid, what does the process look like after that, and what kind of financial impact would it have on the city?
If we reject just this bid or both the bids?
Both the bids, I guess, or, yeah. I mean, this item here and then it would have to go back to the bid process, yes. Correct? Yeah.
So today, if we reject the bids, the financial impact on the city would be, we are on a strict time schedule order from our regional water quality control board to meet certain deadlines on the project. So that will be delayed. We need to be working with them because once we reject this, we have to modify the project and rebid the project, which will at least take 3 to 6 months on that. And also, I would say we need to talk to our financial team at the State Water Board. I don't think they'll be pulling the money out, but it's a pot of money that, if somebody else comes in and grabs the money, then that money will be gone. So limitations on that, I would say.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just, thinking back to a few years ago when this whole project originally came to the council. And correct me if I'm wrong. I remember the first iteration of it was one large project, and originally I think one of the recommendations, or maybe one of the leading recommendations, was to eliminate the marsh system as part of the filtration process. There's a lot of discontent about that from the community, and I think we ended up figuring out a way to keep the marsh as part of the process, and then it went into, well, let's break it up into two pieces. Maybe we can just do part one first and see how it goes, and then do part two later, and after we can kind of reassess. Is that correct?
Somewhat, yes. Okay.
Correct. Can you correct the parts that I didn't get right?
Well, I would say that right now the phase 1 project is there. The phase 2 project is on hold. It's on the hold because we've been directed by the State Water Board.
Sure. Okay. So originally, wasn't phase 1 and phase 2 together $55 million?
3 years ago, yes, there was one project which included phase 1 and phase 2.
So now we're just talking about doing half the project, phase 1, for $55 million.
I wouldn't say half the project, but yes, we are doing only phase 1, focusing on compliance and infrastructure improvements.
So if we do phase 2, that's going to be another tens of millions of dollars.
In this market, I would say, yeah, it will be higher cost.
Right. And so when we had these discussions about how we were going to fund this project, and we decided that we were going to raise rates on all of our customers, It seemed like the whole, financing plan for this project was based on a total cost of $55 million. Is that correct?
I think at the time, you're very close. I think it was a little over 60 million that we were talking about. And part of that in that period was to say, this is what we think that we can raise, that we can include within the rate structure towards improvements. At that time, I think the council requested, and staff certainly would be diligent about finding additional grant monies. We are in a really good position right now with stimulus funds coming through the state and the federal government, that the vast majority of this phase one is going to be funded through grant funds. We are, as we work through each individual item, there will be pieces of it that will be funded with our sewer rates. But right now, we are sitting in a good financial position to complete phase one and still have funds, depending on the speed with which we can move, to have additional grant funds and or have our rate structure be able to fund additional improvements.
Okay, so, it sounds like, ultimately what we're pushing for is to complete phase two in addition. Is that correct?
Down the road, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I'm just trying to, pull all the pieces together, and the feedback we've received from the Coastal Commission and the Water Quality Control Board. And yeah, I guess it seems likely, one, this money isn't going to last forever, right? There's a lot of talks of the economy, globally going into a recession. A lot of these funds may dry up in the future. And, I guess my concern is that we would have to do another rate increase on the residents down the road. Can we rule that out?
I don't know if you can ever rule that out. What I will say is this is the best financial position that we have, in at least my time here at the city, ever been in terms of sitting. And the quicker we move, the more access to those grant funds we will have. To do this phase one with, maybe we're looking at 80+% in grant funds and spending, very little of the money that we had set aside initially and that we are garnering towards that is pretty incredible. But, looking at phase two, part of it, remember, we put off phase two to see what level of compliance do we get from phase one in conjunction with our other sewer project you approved tonight. And we're working on a $10 million I&I project to bring back to the council that's in your CIP this year as well in the budget to work on. So garnering what we get in terms of capacity and compliance through all of those projects in the next couple of years is what we will be assessing as to whether or not, how critical phase two is and what the timeline of that is. But prices are going up. When we look at the bid prices here, they're tremendously higher. We don't see that going back down, unfortunately. It does create a sense of urgency to get this needed maintenance and repair work done on this phase one, I think sooner than later as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So, when we talk about the financial stability and the financial position the city's in, one thing I think it's important that we, kind of obviously always keep in mind are revenues coming into the city. And, one thing I've requested is the quarterly reports we get from HDL that kind of highlight, all of our top 25 tax revenue generators for the city. And I don't believe the council's received any of that information. So please correct me if I'm wrong on that. And I feel like that's really important information that we have several quarters missing of one of the most financial inputs we have, financial indicators.
Okay, I agree that those are important documents and the council should receive those, and that is in process. But I do want to just point out that what you see in sales tax revenue associated with those reports is not water sewer revenue. So those are very separated revenues. They are certainly economic indicators, to your point there, but they are not revenues that would be used towards this project.
Sure, and I agree, the importance of the economic indicator being, how that might be connected to our residents, ratepayers' ability to actually pay their utility bills. So I feel like that's the important connection there. And it's, I guess, it's also concerning to me that we didn't have that information when we approved the budget. And, for the 5 years I've been on the council, we always got it promptly every quarter. So yeah, it would be, great if that information was expedited to us. And so, I guess from my past conversations with the Coastal Commission, I'd really like to hear from Dobie too, frankly. And my past conversations with the Coastal Commission, when we were working on this a few years ago, as well as the Coastal Commission staff, and then looking at other decisions the Coastal Commission has made, it just seems really unlikely that, what seems likely is that we're ultimately going to be told to move our wastewater treatment plant. So, it's now that the cost of phase 1 has gone up to $55 million when we thought that was going to be the cost of both phases together. It's just really makes it questionable to me if this is the best use of $55 million of taxpayer money. Maybe we should be putting that money towards the much larger expense and larger project of moving the wastewater treatment plant out of an area susceptible to sea level rise. So those are my comments right now. Thank you.
Clarifying question, because I believe you said this before, Netra, that we have received the coastal development permit for this phase of the project.
That's true. We got that last month.
So the Coastal Commission has approved this part of the project for the foreseeable life of this equipment that we are installing.
That is true.
For now.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but they do support, and in some instances will allow reparation of existing fortifications, but they are typically, have a pretty strong opinion against building brand new seawalls. I think that maybe they've even put a moratorium on it. So as far as creating, I think some people have this idea in their mind that we can just build this big wall to hold the ocean back. I don't feel like that's realistic or would be approved. So just keeping in mind our limited ability to repair and maybe to some extent strengthen our existing fortifications and how that plays into everything.
So are we going to hear from anyone in the front row here? I'm just wondering if we have that opportunity to listen to all of you, because you've all been sitting there. Have a comment from them?
Yeah, let's go ahead and open up public comment. So just it's been a minute since we've done something like this here, so I just want to be really clear. Does everyone, what are our policies regarding like the applicants? Does everyone get a 3 minutes, or do we give more time for the applicants or the bid winners to explain what's normal procedure?
Yeah, I would say if the council has questions, I would limit it to the initial 3 minutes. If the council has questions, certainly of the contractor who is here tonight, they certainly can answer those after that.
Okay, so we'll give you 3 minutes, and then if we have questions, we can extend it. So, thank you.
I might also add that there may be, I don't know if there's anybody on the phone from the protesting bidder that might have something to say that I might want to respond to, so maybe we can address that when the time comes. But thank you, council members. My name's Trevin Tilbury. I represent Walland Construction, the lowest responsible and responsive bid on the project. I had some kind of comments prepared to go over, and then some questions came up, and I want to try to hit each of those things, and I'll be as quick as I possibly can. One of the things I think, and all of the vast majority of this has been addressed in the letter briefs that went back and forth, the protests and the response, et cetera, that staff has reviewed in some detail. So I'm going to try to hit the highlights. One of the things that Councilmember Schaefer, I think it is, asked about was what happens if the bid is rejected, and that gets off into some pretty deep weeds about public bidding law. But the basics of this is that the qualifications that North Coast has challenged for Walland. When there's a challenge like that, the courts tend to look at it through a different lens, and that lens is a responsibility lens instead of the responsiveness lens. I won't bore you with the details of that, but responsibility has to do with whether the contractor can actually perform the work as promised. And so anytime you're looking at their capabilities, you're looking at responsibility. And what the California courts have said is that if you're going to reject a bid based on responsibility, you have to give that contractor a couple of things. One of those is a due process hearing where they get to come in and put on evidence. And the idea is that if you find them non-responsible, it's going to affect them down the line on other projects because they're going to have this sort of mark against them. So to answer Councilmember Schaefer's question, if value of the prior contracts, they talk about 80% of the value of those prior contracts. And in our perspective, you can't fairly assess that when you've got explosive inflation that we've seen in the construction industry. We've had 36% inflation over the last few years in the construction industry, according to a pretty well-respected industry document. And so if you look at even just one of Wallen's projects, the College of Redwoods project, which was about a $30 million project, or no, excuse me, I think it's more than that. But if you apply that 36% escalation, if you bid that project today, you'd be looking at a $60 million project, would be well in excess of the actual contract price, much less the engineer's estimate. Are there any questions I can answer?
I don't think right now. Let's go ahead and we'll do public input both in person and online, and then if we have any questions for any of you guys, we'll definitely ask.
Thank you.
So,
are there any other people part of this that would want to speak?
Well, it's open to anybody in the room for public comment
Okay.
on this subject matter.
I'm really surprised from the Planning Commission and the council hasn't even read the response from the Coastal Commission, because the questions you're even asking tonight is a reflection that you haven't even looked at it. Part of the reason why 1 and 2 weren't combined because the Coastal Commission wasn't going to go for it because of levee enhancement. So that's the reason only phase 1 was approved, because it has to do with water quality. So the whole phase 2 aspect of it, which the city put in writing, and also since I was only 1 out of 2 in all of Humboldt County that actually participated in the Coastal Commission meeting, they pretty much send a pretty clear message in their response that they're not too excited about levee enhancement. So I don't think there's going to be a phase 2, but if you want to look at phase 2 from the city standpoint in writing and verbally to the Coastal Commission was 33,000 more that they want, 5.5 for levee enhancement. So that's a lot of money on top of what you're approving tonight. So I don't know of any big investment that the city has made in the Gateway project. I don't know, maybe it's $1 to $2 million as far as, Plan West and time. And you would think that that would have been a basic question to see what the parameters were for the wastewater treatment plant and where it's going in the future.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry, and I am very concerned about the history of this whole project and how we end up kind of racing to put Band-Aids on something instead of trying to avoid the accident in the first place. And I know many of you are new on the council, and I'm not an expert and not well learned on the specifics of this particular project. $50 million is a whole lot of money. I'm so glad that this has been divided into 2 phases, and I hope to God phase 2 doesn't go into effect, because when Greg is talking about the Coastal Commission and coastal zone areas, we really need to look at those areas and projects and infrastructure in those areas very, very differently than we look at other projects above on higher ground, etc. And the history of this beautifully world-renowned sewage treatment plant is wonderful. It's something that I have appreciated in my many years before I moved here 10 years ago, in appreciating its adaptive qualities to make a natural setting and a recreation area and a beautiful bird refuge, etc. in our community from an old landfill, apparently. But I wrote you an email, and I didn't hear back from anybody but Councilmember Matthews, but I basically started my email saying nostalgia and business as usual will be our demise. And I really believe that. And I think our Arcata Marsh and sewage treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, has been a wonderful, wonderful thing, but its time is coming up, and we really need to look to the future. So whatever you decide tonight on phase 1, we have to do a lot. And I spoke to somebody who's an advocate outside, an environmental advocate, and that person shared a lot of history with me about the challenges of our existing sewage treatment plant and what that person foresees needing to happen in the future. And I've had chances to talk to other experts on sea level rise, etc. So whatever you do tonight, just also really think about actively thinking about the future and what we're going to need to do pretty much sooner than later in the future. So I can't speak about this specific allotment of money. If it's coming through and we have it set aside and it's not going to hopefully result in huge increases to landowners, of which I'm a tenant in a landowning thing and don't want their rates to go up, so my rent will go up, but you know, do what you need to do with this particular project, but don't dilly-dally anymore on that phase 2 and really think about drastic changes for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
All right, we have one online comment. Go ahead, C. Polton.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Hi, City Council members. I'm Cliff Polton with McCulloch Construction. We're located here in Arcata, and I'm representing North Coast Contractors JV. We were the second bidder on this project. The responsive low bidder. Please understand that we spent an enormous amount of time to bid a job like this. We went way out of our way to follow the specifications for this job, including a joint venture with a fully qualified team from out of the area to make sure that we were meeting the spec. The staff report before you says that the Wallen bid essentially meets the requirements of the job specifications with only inconsequential variations that should be waived. Please note that established case law makes it clear that awarding a job based on different criteria than is specified is illegal. Not only is it important for you to treat the bidders fairly here, but you will be violating state law if you award this job to Wallen tonight. The staff report says that the Wallen bid essentially meets the qualifications, but the staff report doesn't tell the whole story. The specifications clearly state that to qualify, the bidder must show at least one completed project that is at least 80% of the value of the project bid. 80%, not 80% of the engineer's estimate, which, by the way, is $11.8 million difference. This is what the staff report used to show that Wallen's bid qualifies. The project that the city is using to qualify Wallen is not complete. That's one of the requirements, is it is a complete project. Per Wallen's bid submittal, the project won't be complete until the end of April of 23. Job in question, this is at the College of Redwoods, was apparently 8 small jobs combined into one. So if the city is saying that 7 of the 8 modules are complete for this project, then the city needs to consider this as 7 small jobs, not one large one. Largest project that Wallen has listed as completed in the last 5 years, which is also a requirement of the spec, is $15.3 million. This is just under 30% of the project you are considering awarding.
Mr. Polton, that is actually your 3 minutes, so thank you for calling in.
Our next speaker is Chelsea. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. My name is Chelsea Rios, and I'm also with McCulloch Construction, a partner in the North Coast Constructors, a bidder on this project. First off, I just want to make a point to the council that there was a comment made earlier by Nancy And it's a bit concerning, possible collusion, that if Wallen Construction is awarded this project and there is a lawsuit, Wallen would cover the city's legal fees. I just want to make sure that the city knows that that is grounds for collusion. I also want to pick up where Cliff Poulton had left off. He had mentioned that the $15.3 million project is just under 30% of the project that you are considering awarding. Even if you consider the incomplete project is partially completed and that somehow qualifies, it is just under 60% of the project. There is nothing in the spec that says close to 80% of the engineer's estimate for the project. I want to jump down to talk about the electrical qualification. It's even more of a problem. As this staff report correctly states, the reason for putting qualifications in the spec is to make sure that the contractor is qualified to do the work. The whole point of the electrical qualification is not only to show that the general contractor has the qualifications for the project, but that the electrical work is also done by a qualified electrician as well. While Wallen does have considerable experience as a GC on this type of work, there's nothing in his bid docs that show that he has completed work that is even close to the bid required experience as an electrician. Wallen only added an electrical license to his general license in January of 2021. The spec calls for a minimum of 5 years of electrical experience, as well as a job that is 80% of the value of this job. The largest completed electrical job that Wallen listed in his bid docs is $150,000. Assuming that the electrical for this project is at least $12 million, this is just over 1% in lieu of the required 80%. This staff report completely ignores the qualification requirements for the electrical portion of the work, stating that the GC has an electrical license and that somehow that relieves the GC of having to have any electrical qualifications. Again, contrary to state law, if this is the standard, it has to be so stated in the specifications. The only legal options for the council here are to award the job to the North Coast Constructors JV, or to reject all bids, reissue the job with the revised qualifications, and rebid it. Quite likely, more contractors will be bidding next time around, especially more electricians, when the qualifications are eased to the point that the staff is requesting you to award tonight. I understand this is a huge problem, money problem for the city. $11 million difference between our bid and Wallen bid is a lot of money. And I understand that there is a $4 million grant that the city stands to lose if the work on the new disinfection system is not completed by March 1st, 2023.
Thank you, Chelsea. Oh, Chelsea, that's your 3 minutes, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right, no more online comments.
Okay, so just, I know that, if a council member needs a clarification, they'll ask, yeah. So I just wanted to, I mean, I think we've all probably, most of us have had conversations with staff about the process, about, you know, checking back with other folks to make sure that we are doing things legally and correctly. And so with, I guess my question is, with different things that you've heard brought up in public comment, is there anything that changes the recommendation that you have for us tonight? Have you heard anything that causes concern or would change that recommendation?
No, I haven't. I will say that the Wallen Construction indemnity is in its capacity as real party in interest, which obligates it to defend the lawsuit. It is not a collusionary matter. And I also did want to have to be given advance notice that that's the basis for rejecting a bid. But I think the quick point here is that staff does not have concerns about qualifications. The only issue that staff is asking the council to affirmatively acknowledge and waive are the minor irregularities of the bid to the bid specifications. And that is something that is conferred totally to the discretion of the city council. It is not something that is determined de novo or separately or independently by an appellate court. Responsiveness is based on the bid document itself. It doesn't look beyond the bid document. and on the face of the bid document. It is actually very common for construction projects to come forward with irregularities, and it is within the city's discretion to say it is immaterial. The contractor will perform the work as it was bid, and that is I think, you know, I'm sorry if I went on too long, but I think it's an important distinction.
So at this time, we can either take more questions if council members have them. If anybody is wanting to make a motion, just to remind, there are three parts to that motion.
Is there anyone else that's in this front row that wants to speak? Because we could continue our public comment because we have, thank you.
Pleasure to be here. Fallen Construction has been doing wastewater projects for approximately 32 years, and all we do is wastewater. We do 10% is other projects, but 90% of our work is water and wastewater, and you can see that by our resumes sent in. And we in 2007 to 2010 we did the Crescent City wastewater project. That was bid at 35 million, went up 37 million, and so that's 15 years ago. That project was approximately a stone's throw, maybe 200 yards from the Pacific Ocean. We were excavated 40 foot deep with shoring to do a large MBR system concrete. So even back then, we've handled projects similar to this. And if you take the current escalation of 36%, that project alone would have been 62 million bid today. There's been talk about the use of value versus, nature specified as the bid documents. The value in our mind is can be current value. So the current value for these projects, like the Crescent City wastewater, would be 62 million. So we do meet the criteria for the 80%. I'd like to also point out most of my staff is here tonight, and I'd like to state my wife and I started this business back in 1989, and we started it as I was the president, and we started a corporation, so she had to be the secretary, treasurer, and vice president. So she did a great job. We started out, and we've slowly moved up to this point. So we have a very good track record of moving up to this point, and our bonding company has recognized that and says, okay, you can get a bid bond because you've proven that you can graduate up to here, you have the working capital to do the project. And we've also picked up, Brett Reinhardt over on the far end. He's worked with me since 2005 down in the city of Fortuna. And we've grown in our relationship, and he's going to be a very important part of this project because he's been working on a process of wastewater and water plants for that amount of time from 2005. Actually, it was bid in 2004, so it's almost been 18 years now that we've been doing nothing but wastewater and treatment projects and together. And then he has a lot of familiarity with all these projects. I've also got Bob Crittenden here, who taught for 7 years estimating at College of the Redwoods, and he's currently our lead estimator. He helps run projects that he estimates, gets them off the ground, so we do them as we estimate, and then he'll fall back and start bidding again. And so he's been with me about 15 years. And then my son Ryan is here. He's a registered mechanical engineer, which is unheard of. Most engineers are civil. So he's got experience right out of Chico State. He's registered so he can stamp drawings. And he's right out of Chico State and went down to work at the Foster Farms chicken plant down there. And they raise chickens in about 7-8 days now. So the point is that he's been in the worst scenarios of processing equipment, mechanical equipment, so he can step in anytime we have a conflict or we have something that we don't think the engineer's drawing can come up with, and we'll assist with that. And then Brett also is a civil engineer, registered, and I have Greg Hufford here that came over from SHN, who's very familiar with engineering, and he's a registered civil engineer. I've got 2 civil engineers, a mechanical engineer on staff, which is unheard of. So we can handle just about anything that comes up. We currently have $120 million bonding capacity. So this job isn't even going to phase our capacity. And we don't get that capacity just given to us. You have to show 30 years of gradually saving working capital and getting up to where you have enough working capital to do these jobs, or you can't even bid them. So, and then I've got Kyle Brown here. We picked up Redwood Electric, who'd been in business for 20 years here locally, and all of his experience in electrical, he does high voltage, which is unheard of. Everybody comes to us to do the high voltage work now, and we picked up all of their experience and his time involved in the electrical business. So yeah, it's true that we just got our C10 license and picked that up, but his experience is what we're working with here. And NCC states that, well, he just got a license a year ago. Well, their joint venture license was received, I believe, on August 6th of 22. So their joint venture license not only was picked up last minute, it was a joint venture license that is an LLC. So it's pretty hard for them to be hypocritical about what we submitted when they're grossly incompliant with the requirements. So I also have Carly Harpin here. She's our office manager, and she does a great job getting the job set up with submittals and making sure that all of the OSHA requirements and everything are met. So we do have the staff, we have the capability, and we really appreciate the job. And when these jobs bid, there's always little glitches here and there with specifications and things like that. But we proved with our response of the attorneys that none of their allegations really hold water at all. They're hypocritical, and they're condemning us for acts that they've violated also in this process. So unless you have any questions for me, I can answer.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming forward and speaking.
Okay, so I would say either questions or a motion.
I'll make a motion to waive immaterial and minor bid discrepancies and award a construction contract for the Phase 1 of the Arcata Wastewater Treatment Facility Improvement Project to Wall and Construction Incorporated, the amount of $51,495,000.57. Authorize the city engineer to increase the contract amount by up to $3,089,700.03, 6%, for a total of $54,584,700.60 to allow for any unforeseen contingencies and additional work as necessary, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents.
I'll second the motion.
So I've worked on this issue more than any other issue in the city in my 5 years, and met with staff, many meetings with staff, many tours of the plant. I've traveled to coastal commission meetings. I've traveled to other cities to tour their wastewater treatment facilities, and I've met with the coastal commission staff. And just, there's just a lot of things that concern me about it. The costs seemingly doubling, the unfinancial certainty of the city, missing key economic indicators that have, seemingly been withheld from the public. And I do, agree that we as a city are not doing enough to prepare our city for sea level rise. And to spend $55 million on infrastructure that's in sea level rise area, when we can see the writing on the wall, is that we're going to have to move the plan. And that's going to cost, who knows how many more millions of dollars. So, I don't, have any specific issues with the bids or the contractors working on it. Yeah, those are my feelings on it. And, it's also confusing to me that, how the cost is doubled without, the council kind of being kept abreast of those increases in costs over time. So for those reasons, I'm not going to be able to support this tonight. Thank you.
Those are good points, but I don't think that's what we're voting on, though.
I'm just telling you why I'm not voting for it. Yeah. We're voting on spending $55 million, right, of taxpayer money. So that's why I'm not voting.
But it's not all taxpayer money. It's 80% of it is grant funded.
Where do the grants come from?
Where do the grants come from now?
Taxpayers,
Okay,
right?
actually, can we?
Great, we have a motion and a second.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, and Councilmember Watson explained why he's probably going to vote no. And so let's go ahead and unless there's any other questions, let's go ahead and take the vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Congratulations. Okay, so next we have oral and written communications. And the city appreciates public input. This time is provided for people to address the council or submit written communications on matters that are not on the agenda. Please know that pursuant to the Brown Act, council cannot discuss or take action on items that are not listed on the posted agenda. At the end of all oral and written communications, the council may respond to statements. Supported requests that require council action will be set by the council for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers addressing the council will be limited to 3 minutes. All right, so let's go ahead and start with anybody that's in person.
Hi. I'm always still here. As I told the previous council members a few years ago, this is better than Netflix as far as I'm concerned. But I have sent you emails periodically, and I was a little disconcerted that I only got one reply. So I hope you have seen and read my emails. And just as a courtesy, it would be nice just to have you just send back a quick thanks for your email, even if you don't have to elaborate on the beautiful poetry that I presented to you in my email to you. So one of the emails a while ago was about the overview effect. And as we are sending up, I think, the first Native American woman into space, or maybe she's already gone, and space is constantly something that people are looking at and thinking about. The overview effect is the impact looking back at Earth has on the astronauts who are up there in space. And so as we decide on the minutia and the monies and the material matters in our locale of Arcata, California, Humboldt County, USA, I just want to encourage you to continually think about those immediate local issues and matters that we have to act upon, in you in your capacity as council members and staff, and me as citizens think about. I just would hope that you take moments to pull back and think about the bigger picture, because everything we do in the little things or the major investments locally do have the impact on a global sense or a planetary sense. So I just have for you, and this has nothing to do with any other issue that is local and being discussed, but I have for each of you an Earth flag, because I want you to remember the overview effect and think about that, and maybe if you need to hang it somewhere where you'll see it periodically, to recall what I'm hoping to ask you to do along with me in that regard. So here we go. Karen already has a couple.
And so Joanne, I don't get your emails. I only get your messenger. That's because you must not have my correct email.
I would like to know when I'm going to get an answer from the standpoint of, I mean, we have a coastal commission and we have laws, and why is it that you think that you could put 8 stories in the coastal commission when they clearly have jurisdiction and have said this is their call on it? So you seem to be putting a lot of money into this, a lot of time, and you haven't done your homework as far as going to them and asking them the parameters of what they're going to allow, because I'm pretty confident they're going to shoot it down. And not only are they going to shoot it down from that standpoint, that you have a grant that you guys approved for $100,000, and part of that grant is to address sea level rise and also answer some of those questions that clearly none of you have read, as far as addressing where you're going to move that plant. And there's been a lot of talk about that plant's best location is basically in the Barrow District. So I don't see how you guys can come up with voting on this when you don't have those answers. You don't have the report. That's 18 months from now, according to the city. So why do you keep on acting like this is not like a big deal? You know, I mean, I'm just blown away that there are laws. You swore to uphold the laws of the state of California. I understand that your position here is you've got a lot on your plate, so I'm not expecting you to be experts, but at least you should be asking staff, and why is staff not giving you this information? Why is staff not consulting with you to give you an education? Because, I mean, you're coming across as very arrogant that with this process that you can just continue along and not address it. I mean, you approved Plan West for $700,000, a couple $100,000 here. You know, it's a lot of money. And what's going to happen is if I'm right about this, you're starting all over again, which is a complete waste of your time, taxpayers' money. I mean, I don't understand this process. This process did not come from the community. It didn't come from architects. It didn't come from urban designers, because they wouldn't do this. They would have like quit in frustration from the option. You only gave one option. That's not how it works. You know, creative people have lots of options, and then you basically narrow that down to some really good answers. And that's what happens with urban design, is that you have a lot of input from the public, you have professionals, they come up with a lot of options, and then they present it to you. Here it's like everybody needs to fall in place with the city as far as the planning commission and yourself, and you got one option, and I don't think it's a very good option.
Thank you.
One online. Anthony, go ahead, Anthony.
Hello, thank you. You know, I actually kind of wanted to second what the gentleman before me was saying. I'm really curious about what goes into the decision making in the city council, because I'm often surprised at how so many people in the public will have opinions that are different than what you guys seem to be voting on. And I don't mean that in any mean way. I respect the work that you're doing, but I especially at that last decision, there was a lot of stuff thrown out there, and that's a lot of pressure, and I really appreciate and respect the work that you guys are doing, and that you understand what those people were saying there to a higher degree than I could. But still, I'm very confused and almost concerned with a lot of the decisions that I see being made, and a lot of the reluctancy to kind of engage the public more. I've seen some of it, which was really great, and I've seen a lot of people come, and I'm becoming active myself, which is fun, but I really hope that we can all get more transparency and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Anyone else? So next we have council and staff reports. Do we have any other staff updates?
No, I just wanted to share with the council that we did have a social media threat that came through around the Arcata High campus today. It did result in a fairly significant response from our police department. We did put out a press release, and I just want to acknowledge the work of the school and the police department today in cooperation with each other in handling that event. It did end up being a social media post that was posted by an Arcata High student, 14-year-old student. Our detectives working with the school were able to identify that individual, and unfortunately very young person, but taken into custody and is in juvenile hall today. There was no immediate threat to campus in the end, but the campus was on lockdown for a period of time, and the administration and the staff in the high school were excellent about communicating with the police department and vice versa. So just wanted to, it's not a good situation for our community and the families, but very well handled around for safety of our kids today.
I had a request on a couple things for reports on. Could you just, because I'm assuming you've seen them, could you just give us a verbal report of the HDL reports?
I couldn't off of memory, but I do understand that they are coming to you shortly.
Okay, is that like within a week, 2 weeks?
Quicker than that.
Quicker than that, excellent. And then I had emailed our city computer person. It kind of looks like a bunch of emails in my email account have been destroyed, and I know that only the staff has the ability to do that. The council can't do that, and he stopped replying to me. I was wondering if you had an update on what happened to my emails.
I don't have that update, but we'll work on getting that. Back to you.
Okay, thanks.
But staff do not have access. I mean, our IT, Deputy Director of IT, does have access to the back end of the system, but the rest of the staff do not. I mean, council members, staff do delete their own emails at times, but they do get archived here at the city.
Okay. And then during the study session with the Planning Commission, it's, my perception was that several times multiple planning commissioners and then, multiple council members agreed and then reasserted their desire for a third-party polling agency consultant to poll the residents, the voters, constituents on, how they felt about the Gateway Plan. And I was wondering what the status is of that.
We have reached out to a couple of polling agencies around that. At this point, it's on hold waiting. The Planning Commission was intending on having a larger discussion about the Gateway at their last meeting. They had a current planning project that took up the bulk of that meeting. So we were holding on some direction from the Planning Commission to be able to package what all of their needs were, and that's where the status of that is.
Great. And then, just a request on the status of some of the agenda items I've requested. A couple months ago at that meeting, I suggested that we discuss paying planning commissioners for their service. When I researched it, other cities do that, and it seemed like there was a consensus amongst the council that we should, have that conversation. So I was wondering when that might be coming to us. And I'd also requested that we look at, giving some of our committee members some form of compensation as well. So, I do feel like, it would be appreciated by them. And, we just approved a $60 million budget, and what we're hearing is that, everything's sunshine and rainbows with our finances. It seems pretty reasonable that, we could help out our residents, our volunteers. Thanks.
So I have to understand what you're saying. You're saying in this comment right now, you want to pay the planning commissioners. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if any city does that.
They do. I looked it up, yeah.
So if I can interject, so I did get that email, and I'll just let you guys know what my thinking is behind it, and if you feel differently, then so be it. That would be a conversation. It definitely is a conversation, and it seems more appropriate to have it at goal setting and budget time. But if anybody would like to have it sooner, then
Yeah, I know I don't recall anyone on the planning commission during the study session even indicating that you indicated it, but nobody else seemed to indicate that interest. And then you wanted to pay who else?
Our committee members. I thought it'd be reasonable to pay our committee members $20 an hour. attending committee meetings.
So I think really the idea, Alex, is if we want to put this on, I think to discuss it, it needs to go on the agenda. So we either just need to-
I just wanted to, I couldn't understand
Oh, okay.
everything he was saying, so I'm just trying to reiterate it
Okay,
so I
sorry.
can understand it. And I would agree that, then we could have volunteers that got paid. You know, I don't agree with that at this point, and I think if you want to bring it up, if for goal setting or something, that could be, but I don't think that's the way we need to go at this time, even though you, period.
Okay. Any other council member reports?
It's not necessarily a report of my own, but I was driving on Foster today, and I just want to comment about, and I know we have some parks and environmental service people here, about how wonderful Shea Park looks and the improvements in the playground, or the Ninja Warrior workout playground, whatever you want to call it. It just looks super cool, and I can't wait for it to be open and check it out. And it's walking distance from my house. It's a great location for a lot of people to be able to use it. So really grateful for that work that everybody has put in on that, and it looks great.
Yeah, thanks. Just want to say that Yom Kippur ended at 7:32 tonight. There is still a lot of anti-Semitic literature being strewn about Arcata. It's still not okay. Just want to wish all who celebrate Gemar Chatima Tova.
And then, yeah, just lastly, I want to ask, do I have support from the council in pursuing, training for working with people with mental health issues and disabilities? And also, I think it would be appropriate to add the city attorney to that list as well, to pay for her training.
I'm definitely having trouble hearing what you're saying. I'm really sorry.
It's okay. So I just felt like it would be good if the council, the staff, as well as the city attorney received training to learn how to better work with and understand people that have mental health issues and also have disabilities in the workplace. And I was wondering if there was support for that.
I have no idea, but I can give my report. So HTA sold their cell tower that they had on their lot where all the buses are parked, and they sold it for $1.4 million, and that money then goes towards our bus systems. And also I attended the vacation rentals meeting today with the community development staff, and was able to find out what was going on there. And then one of the things I'm somewhat concerned about off and on is those crossing, the raised bubble crossing that we have on corners throughout Arcata. They only last so long, and then they start to come up. I think today I sent you a photograph of one that was on the corner of H and 10th. So I worry about those because I see them pop up and I think of them out as trip hazards. And I'm wondering if they're even necessary for us to do that, and why is that part of safe routes of something or other? You don't have to answer me, but that's my report on that one. But I worry about that. I send pictures in whenever I see them. So I think that's all. I did go to, yesterday I did go to the MMIP, and was an all-day event that was at the community center. And it was funded and arranged by the Humboldt Area Foundation. I think it was really wise for them to do that. And they had indigenous people that came from throughout California for that, from all the various tribes. And it's amazing some of the work that's being done, and some of the work that has to be done that isn't always done correctly, because not everyone knows what the law is. But I think it was well worth it, and I was happy that I went, because it is an issue, and we hear more about it from in Canada for quite a long time about missing women, and there's missing everyone, children, women, and they had the last half of the day were parents coming, or individuals talking about their children disappearing, or their wife disappearing, or their child disappearing, and trafficking. We know we have a big issue with trafficking throughout the United States, and that was something else they talked about. So thank you.
I forgot I did have something I wanted to report, or at least announce. I am not our chamber person, but I am our Redwood Coast Energy Authority person. And so our CEA is hosting the Chamber of Commerce Mixer tomorrow at 5:30, and it will be at Wrangletown / North Story Wine on I Street next to Salt. And there's going to be live music, and it is guaranteed to be a good time. I also hear there's going to be some energy trivia, something like that. So I think it's going to be a good time. So come on out and enjoy some great local music and great local wine and schmooze with the lovely business folk.
And there'll be also, at this point, we have a new chamber executive director, and we're in the process of confirming an executive director for the Arcata Main Street.
Yeah, we hired a wonderful chamber director. I'm really excited for us to introduce her tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks for the chamber update. I will definitely be attending. Thank you.
And for mine, we did, Main Street's getting a new executive director as well, which is exciting. And also I attended the Centro del Pueblo fundraiser that they had last weekend at the community garden at El Jardín, and it was really lovely. Joanne was there as well, and they had a great fundraising effort. So it was a good community event. And with that, we'll go ahead and, I don't think we don't have any special meetings coming up, so we could skip through that part and go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.